Got him. Blake's on. Blake's on. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, baby. Dragging his ass around. I was about to say, reel yours in. Jessica, reel yours in. Oh, God. He's all tangled up. Yeah! Brought him straight to the net, mate.
In the net. He's in the net. Oh, hell yeah. Huh? What you know about that? Total chaos.
All right, got the cleaning table set up. Got to clean this nice red. Oh yeah, nice red. He is ice cold. Ice baby. Come on. Nice upper slot fish. Get all the slime off of him. Get the ice out of his gullet. See if I can clean him up for y'all. Show y'all how I do it. Big old fat upper slot red. I hope all the haters get all their panties in a wad over this one. Telling me
You're not supposed to eat the big ones.
like they always do. Let's flip him over to his other side. Oh yeah. And like I tell everybody, I don't eat big ones. There's a slot for a reason. Obviously, the Wildlife Department, Division of Marine Fisheries, and all the biologists say that anything between 18 inches and 27 inches is a juvenile fish. Not saying that they're not breeding, not saying that they're not making bambinos, just saying that they're adequate for harvest. And I don't think one a day per week, at least not from me, is hurting anything. Alright, enough complaining and griping about the haters. Let me show you how I do this. I like to spray them off good. As y'all know, these fish live in a very muddy environment. And anything that's on the outside of them will work its way to the inside on your knife. That is a nice fat slab red. Unfortunately, I didn't get the black drum that I was hoping for, but it's all gravy. I like to start at the fins right there. I like to work my way in there because there's everybody who's ever cleaned a fish knows, and if you've not cleaned one of these fish, now you know. In every fish, there is an access point through their armor right at the top of their back. Right there, you can feel it with your fingernail. Right there, there's a slot down this back that shows you, or I'm showing you, there's an access point. It's a good outline to put your knife in, okay? It's on both sides of the spine. It's a good place to get in and work down that spine. You're gonna use the spine as a platform for your knife to run against to get every bit of that fillet off. And I always start here. Everybody does it different. This isn't the right way or the only way. This is just how I do it. I always start here and work my way in. Then I make my head cut. And then I work my way down. Then I flip it over and work my way through. On these upper slot reds, this one is 25 inches. It's a nice upper slot fish. On these larger reds, I will actually skin around the rib bones, and I don't normally keep the ribs. Only because it's hard on my knife and the rib bones are really big. They're big in all the reds and all the drum, but you can, once you get right here, you can just cut right through them if you got a stout enough knife like this one. But for simplicity, I'll cut around them with a smaller knife, something like this. And yes, I do use my buck knife on them as well, but I need to get a new fillet knife. As you can see, I broke the tip off of this one cleaning a deer, and there's some chips in the blade from sharpening it so many times and hitting bones and things. But anyways, I'm gonna get right to it. On smaller fish, these knives will just go right through the ribs, and I'll keep all that rib meat. It's all good meat. There's about that much meat in there. It cooks real good, and then you can pick the ribs out like toothpicks for those people who are terrified they're gonna swallow a bone. All right, I'm gonna try and get the best angle I can here. Let's see, that might be it right there. So I always come in right here, and I kind of angle towards the spine once I'm in, just to make sure I ain't catching myself slipping and missing any meat. So there, I'm in, okay? It was that simple. There's an access point right there in your end. All right, see how that just slipped right in there? And you can angle it down and press against that spine, and it'll guide your knife right down it without losing any meat. All right, keep your hose handy to spray your blade off. Don't let nobody hate on your skill or your style. Spray your knives off as often as you like, because the cleaner the better. All right, I go right through there, and then when I get to the tail, push it straight across. Once you're through, see how that knife just went right through there? Once you're through, push down against the bone and cut out towards the tail. Come all the way out, and then you're in. I can use this knife to go all the way down, but I like this thinner fillet style knife. Just to check, make sure I got all that meat real good. All right, now I'm gonna work my way to the head while pressing down against that spine. Once you get past this dorsal fin, there is no access point, and you got to go right through the scale. So be careful, but see that opening now? You can see that white meat in there, and go all the way to the skull right there. See, my knife won't go any farther. That's the skull. You go all the way to the skull, you'll know you're not missing any meat. Then you can turn it around while using that spine and work all the way down. There we go. We're halfway through the fish now. I'm taking this real slow so that I can show everybody step by step my process. As you're cutting down against that spine, and I'm trying not to leave any detail out that might help anybody get this done safely, quickly, and easily while salvaging as much meat off this animal as you possibly can. When you go through, you're going to hit a halfway mark about right there. That's the center line of the vertebrae. There's a hump there, so you're going to kind of break it into two parts. You're going to fillet this side and then the other side. But to help you do that, once you're fairly certain, and you can always lift this up and peek in there and see. Once you're certain that you've gotten it to that halfway point, lift it up, check and see, get all the way to the head. All right, see, I've hit a wall there, and I can't go any further. All the way to the tail. All right. Now, the way you get the rest of that meat without wasting it is and I like to use a heavy knife, something that's going to bust through this fish. This is an armored, tough fish. I take this big old wide marlin blade, this 12-inch blade, and I come in right before that side fin right there, which I want to say is called the caudal fin, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. Google it if you feel like you need to. Come in right behind that fin. That's a decent access point. There's no scales there. Make sure it's sharp. See how mine just sank right in there? Part the scales, go right behind the gill plate, and come right across here straight to the skull, and you won't lose any meat. You'll salvage every piece of meat off this fish. Go all the way down until you hit that halfway mark. If you look at it from the side, you can see I'm at that halfway mark. Okay, I've gone all the way through. Do the front and angle down on the front, angle down on the back, but don't push it through the gut cavity, because we're not trying to expose and bust any guts, gallbladders, or anything else that they may have in there, because that's going to leak and get on the meat. You don't want that. Do not hit the guts. If you do, it's not a huge problem. Just rinse it really good. Any contaminants that touch this meat will alter the flavor and the preservability. Okay. Once I get done with that head cut, rinse my blade. Just in case I've touched anything that's a contaminant. I don't want it on there. Now, I'm going to set this back to the side. Now, we should be able to peel that up and look in there. All right. See that? You can peel that up, look in there. Now go back to your fleshing knife or your fillet knife and work on this corner right here. There's some tendons holding this fillet to the head. Once you hit that and cut that that tendon, you should be able to start to work this back and it'll start to peel up. There we go. See there? There's a rib there. Now we're getting into rib territory. And this is how we're going to get the other side of that. I tried to get too much off there and I lifted a rib. All right, now while angling your knife, you're going to go to that spine. And this is, I'm trying not to talk too much and describe too much, but I want y'all to really understand how this works. Once you cut this corner, it's going to want to start to peel back. You can kind of get around them ribs. And then once you hit that vertebrae, you're going to go on the other side of it, angle down, and just cut right down that vertebrae. And that's going to get you on the quick course to getting the other side of this spine. On these big fish, they got a big spine, and that spine sits higher than the fillet does. If you just go straight down it, you're going to have about a ½ inch of meat still on this fish on each side of that spine. You don't want to just go in here and like you can a Spanish mackerel or something, because you're going to lose all that meat. All right, see how it's starting to really lift up for me there at that corner? Fillet across those ribs. If you want the rib meat, cut through them. Now it's really starting to lift up, and you can see that spine in there. See that big old white spine? Now I'm cutting hard against that spine in that rib cage, making sure I get all that meat. Now this fillet is going to want to come off on its own. See that? It's opening like a book. It wants to come off. Now you just keep outlining those ribs, but not going too deep. And don't be afraid to put some pressure on those ribs, because this skin is really tough, man. These fish are tough. Put some pressure on it. Now the fillet is off the fish at this point. See this? He's like a literal open book. The guts have not been punctured. Move that fin out the way. You can see there's no guts showing, period, at all. No contaminants on this meat. It's perfectly clean. The fillet is off. Now there's going to be a white line down this side. Just start cutting away at it from the underside, this skin side. And now you have one whole, perfect, untainted, uncontaminated fillet. Beautiful. Now I set that to the side. It's always harder doing the other side with one fillet off, especially on these fish that have a big head. So now I'm going to spin this fish around. I'm going to have his tail facing away from me. And I like to kind of lean them up on their head so they're sitting flat and work back through that entry point I told you about by their fin. Same thing, press them downward against that spine all the way to the skull. Don't slip and cut yourself, so take your time. Don't put too much pressure. If you get to a point where you can't go anymore, stop and reassess. It's not a race. Got some jank on my knife. I'm going to spray it off. It's going to hit that cat standing over there. That cat's going to haul ass. Also, never hesitate to move your fish and clean your surface. A lot of scales, a lot of blood and junk that might get on there. Keep it clean. Keep it spanking. This is your food you're talking about. All right, got my surface clean, got my knife rinsed. Bring him back over here. All right, now I'm gonna rock him back up, and you can already open him up and see I'm in. Fold him up like that a little bit, pressing against that center spine. The fish has bones running vertical all the way through him. If you do it right, these bones are sticking straight towards you, and you're cutting down using the back side of that knife, just sliding right across the back of them. You can press on it just about as hard as you want to, but don't go too hard or too crazy, because you will puncture through sometimes if you go too hard. Now, getting back towards that tail, I'm gonna go take this knife with the point on it, reach in there and feel that spine, go over it, go straight through it like I did right there, press down against the spine. Oh shit. I rocked the table too much, and I do apologize about that. There we go. And cut right towards the end till it comes out. Nice. Okay, now I've got him open. Come back in, pressing against those bones. Work back up. Now he's open like a book. And always, always, always work against those bones. Got it. Alright, I'm to the halfway point on that spine, and I've hit the ribs. I'm going to rinse my knife. Go ahead and rinse this one too. And then I'm going to pick my fish up and rinse my surface. Get all those scales out of the way. Get all that junk out of the way. Bam. Throw him back down. Now, because I'm not concentrating as much as I am talking to the camera, I made a little boo-boo right there. See that? See that hole? You can see the table through there? While I was talking to y'all, I pressed too hard and went right through this fish. But it's okay, because I didn't lose nothing. Now, you see his spine right there? I made it to the spine, to the halfway point. What's the next step? Anybody remember? Break out the big blade. Now we're going to lift that fin up. If you look close, you see that white mark there? That's just skin. There's no scales there. There's no scales around that whole back side. Just let the loud truck with the pipes go by. Alright, we're going to lift that fin up, cutting at an angle towards his skull, towards his head. Bust right through that. Now see there? I've hit that halfway mark. Right through his head. There's nothing better than a fresh, delicious drum. Now, rinse this knife off. Right on. And if I peel him back like that, you can see that fresh angled cut right through there to the halfway mark to his head. Alright, now we're going to go back to that corner right here, and if you cut through that tendon, you'll be able to lift up this corner right there, just like that. Get that scale off my knife. Start to work around those ribs, and then we're going to go on the other side of the spine, pressing downward, and get the other side of that meat. Right behind the ribs on. Okay, now I'm working over the ribs. Open her like a book. Yes, sir. Pretty meat. Oh, yeah. Right over them ribs. Fish meat's soft, so up in this corner, you don't got to use your knife. You can tear it, you can pull at it. I just like to use my knife to guide me down there. Now, same thing on this side. I've opened him like a book. From stern to bow. And now I'm just going to cut down that white line I showed you earlier. And another full, beautiful slab of meat, none wasted. Alright, if you really want to go the length in the distance, I don't know if you can see through him with my headlight or not. We'll try it. If you really want to go the length, you can use the rest of this to make a fish head soup. You can clean his head up, clean the gills out, and do all that, and make a fish head soup. But I don't do that, at least not all the time. It's very rare. It makes a good stock, a good seafood stock and stuff, but it's really only good to do that if you're going to use it soon. Like if tomorrow or the next day, or maybe it's Friday and you're going to use it on the weekend, make you a good fish stock out of that. Alright, the carcass is going back into the cooler. Now, I'm done with my little knives for now, and I'm going to clean off my stuff. Rinse them off. Clean my table. Now, I'm not a big fan of rinsing my meat off here with water. because I've cleaned it in such a fashion that there's not contaminants on it. There might be a scale, you know, you might rinse it before you bag it kind of deal, but there's really nothing to clean off. But this is the point where I take the meat off the skin. I don't scale any fish anymore, and if you've ever tried to scale a red drum, well, more power to you, buddy, because that is some big old scales. Let's start with this one here. And you can see the skin right here already where I've skinned around the ribs. There is no bones in this fillet at all. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to take this big old marlin blade and we're going to fillet this. It's not a fillet knife, but it does work. We're going to fillet that big beautiful piece of meat right off that skin. Some people go up about 1 inch and start, and that way you got something to hang on to, but I feel like my knife's sharp enough. I don't need to do that. I'm just going to hold down that very last end that don't got no meat on it, and I'm going to go to work, start moving it back and forth. This is one of the few times you're going to seesaw. Now while I'm doing that, I'm putting some down pressure on this skin and scales. It is very tough. You probably aren't going to cut through it. Now don't angle your blade down into it and cut across, because you will cut through it. But put a slight angle on it. That way you're scraping that meat off the skin, and just go to town, sliding it back and forth. Make sure your knife is good and sharp. If you're doing this right, your knife is flat against the table. You might want to hang the end off of it once you get started, and just slide it forward, work it back, slide it forward, work it back, all the way till you get to the end. Now once you get to that very end, that's where it's connected to the skin the best, so it's going to get a little hung there. So you just be patient, be prepared that it's going to want to hang on right there, and work through it. See there? And now at this point I might even grab the meat and kind of pull back as I work through it, and there you go. One beautiful skinless, boneless fillet. There we go, going in the old stainless bowl. And then you can see you got the skin left over, the armor, if you will. Make some boots out of that. All right, throw that in the cooler. I'm gonna move this other one up. Notice I'm only touching it on the scale side so I don't contaminate the meat. I'm a stickler about meat contamination, because I learned a long time ago that is what makes things gamey. When everybody says, oh, I don't eat deer, they're gamey. Oh, this is gamey. I found out what gamey translates to is contaminated. When you took your big, nasty, gnarly buck and you used the same knife for the whole process and you never did nothing more than barely rinse at all, if that, or you just wiped it on the table in between cuts, well, that's what made it gamey. Touching the hair, then touching the meat, getting the hair all over the meat, all that stuff made it gamey. And it's the same for fish. If your meat, you've caught or killed an animal that you've known tastes good, and it turns out not tasting good, well, or it tastes gamey, gamey is contaminated. That's all it is. Same thing. Working back through here, keeping her flat, seesawing back and forth. Pushing hard against the table, barely angling down into it. Get towards the end, get up under that meat. It's gonna hang up right there at the end. It always does. See, now this one's doing a better representation of showing you how it likes to hang up right there at the end. Just be patient, keep pressing and work through it. And there you have another beautiful, beautiful slab of boneless, skinless meat. Perfect for the grill. And you've gotten all that beautiful meat off that skin. Slab that in the cooler, shut the lid, and call her done, baby. Now we're gonna go inside and finish the process. Fish. All right, for the last little portion of this, and I don't usually do this, because I typically eat this whole fillet, and that bloodline does not bother me a bit. And if you'll flip it over, I'll tell you why. See all that? You're not going to cut all that out, but people think they can. What you'll end up doing is wasting a ton of meat if you try and cut all this off. But if you flip to this side, you can see a solid bloodline. You can see these little red dots in here too. It's all good. It tastes no different. But for some reason, a ton of people have got it in their head, because somebody told them to cut that out. One thing I will do is, if you'll see this little fin on the top, that fin meat, if you just grab that, that peels right off. Is it good? Yeah, it's totally fine. But it's going to come off anyways. So you might as well go ahead and take that off, because it's coming off. But if you want to cut out that bloodline, cut to it as close as you can. Boom. See what I mean though? It's in the surface of the meat, and it goes halfway through all the way across. You'd have to fillet this in half to get it out, and I'm only doing this to prove a point. You can see it on the other side too. Once you've cut right down that bloodline, it's all the way inside the meat. You're not going to get that out. But then you'll cut just as close as you can to it on the other side. And that's your bloodline. That's what everybody cuts out and throws in the water. See, it's still in there. So my question is, why waste it in the first place? It's all perfectly good meat. Now I'm going to cut this into quadrants. Look how gorgeous that is. That's when you know it's fresh. You see that iridescent shine on it. I don't know if y'all can see that on the camera, that iridescent shine inside that meat. That is beautiful. It is so fresh. Shining those iridescent colors. Throw these little scraps in the bowl. Now I'm going to cut this into a manageable piece. And heck, just that slab right there is a good meal for somebody, one person. And it helps when you vacuum seal it to have it in these little quadrants. Fits in the bag easier. Boom, there's one fillet. Alright. We'll set these to the side. And since I did it to the one, I'll do it to the other. Booyah. Look at that beautiful big old fillet. You know, something like that, it's got a piece of that air bladder on it. I'll definitely cut that off. And then right there, you see that? I don't know if you can see that white piece. That come off the corner of him. Trim that off. That's a piece of the tendon and a little piece of the air bladder, swim bladder. Take that off. And I'll show you again on the other side. That bloodline runs a lot deeper than what you think. So you're really wasting your time and your meat cutting it out. But for the video's sake, I'll cut right down it all the way through. Once again, showing you that it runs the full width of the meat. And it goes halfway through on both sides. But if you want it out, I'll show you how. It does not affect the taste. It all tastes so good. Boom. There's your bloodline. And it's really not blood. They only call it a bloodline because it's red or brown, but that's a good piece of meat right there. Alright. Do the same thing. I'm going to cut them in manageable pieces. Boom. There's one. There's the other. Take this nice big piece. That's good enough for two people right there. Just half of that fillet. Boom. Oh yeah. And then most of it came off in the cleaning process, but I think, yeah, there's that finlet piece. No, I think that's just what's left of it. No, it's on there. See that finlet? It wants to come off. You peel that right off. It's not bad. It's just real thin and tender, and it wants to come off anyway, so might as well take it off. Boom. That's one meal portion. There's another one. Booyah. Alright.